I'm S.A. Bradley, and welcome to Hellbent for Horror, a podcast devoted to all things related to horror, where I remind you that you used to love horror movies, and you secretly still do. In 1896, Thomas Edison scandalized the world with a short film called The Kiss. Now, America was still very Victorian in its morality, and that first kiss shocked the hell out of people. And of course, shocking people flocked to see it. Now, Edison, no dummy, put another one out about a woman doing a striptease. Now, why I bring that up is it shows that exploitation cinema has been with us since the very beginning. No matter who has tried to stop it, independent filmmakers have found ways to make cheap movies that showed folks the type of stuff that Hollywood just couldn't and that they wanted to see. Showmen like Kroger Babb and Roger Corman and Samuel Arkoff discovered ways to work outside of the system and have successful careers. And just like those showmen, our guest today blazed his own crazy and amazing trail with a proudly unique brand of exploitation film. The studio he co-founded, Troma Entertainment, is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. It is the longest-running independent film company in the United States. And he is also celebrating his own anniversary, his 50th year making indie films. His new film, Return to Newcombe High, Volume 2, is having its West Coast premiere on March 8th at the Laemmle Theaters in Los Angeles. I am excited to welcome legendary director, producer, actor, Lloyd Kaufman. Lloyd, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, hey, just having a little morning breakfast. We call that the Troma breakfast. Yes.
Thank you, Scott
Bradley. Thank you. And hell-bent on horror. I am hell-bent on horror, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I have to say that finding Troma films in the 80s when I was just out of high school and heading to college was a breath of fresh air, especially in the midst of a very hedonistic time, very muscle-bound time, very conservative time. Finding movies like The Toxic Avenger was as if I had never seen anything quite like it before. And it's amazing that you're still going. It's wonderful that you're still going. So before we go any further...
How did you like Return to Newcombe High, a.k.a. Volume 2? Michael Herz, my partner of 44 years, he says that's the best film we've ever made. Is that true?
I will say that it is way up there. I still have a very strong spot in my heart for the original Toxic Avenger, but let's talk about Return to Newcombe High.
You're not alone. You are among millions of people who have written in about Toxic or commented on Toxic Avenger. He's part of the lexicon. He's part of the American lexicon. You're right.
Exactly. And not only that, I think he's the only R-rated monster that had a children's cartoon made.
Very
about
true.
Him.
I think it's Toxie, his only weapon is a mop, of course. I think he's the only superhuman hero who has had something in every medium: cartoon, movie, Broadway musical, video shorts, a VR movie now, comic books. I don't think there are any other, even the big Spider-Man. I don't think there's been another superhero who's been in everything. Although Toxie's, underground, but still,
right. It's Toxie and Barbara Streisand, the only ones that have done everything. So let's talk about Return to Newcombe High Volume 2. It's an event film in 2 volumes. And that was 7 years in the making. Okay, Lloyd, explain yourself. What's this story and what's the inspiration?
Well, like all Troma movies, Scott Bradley, I get obsessed with something in the newspapers. In the case of Poultry Guy's Night of the Chicken Dead, McDonald's had built a food place next door to the Troma building. They damaged our building. They were rude. We had rats the size of raccoons. And I read about fast food, and then I read the Fast Food Nation, and I started saying, well, we got to make a movie against fast food and the evils thereof. And since I'm a fanatic about musicals, I wanted to do a musical my whole career, so Poultry Guys, The Night of the Chicken Dead became as kind of a weird. It's not a classical musical like Troma's Cannibal the musical, but indeed it is.
Right.
So in the case of Volume 2, Return to Newcombe High, aka Volume 2, opening in L.A. on March 8th at Laemmle's Fine Arts, I was dealing with many issues. And among them are the stuff in the paper about the bullying and it gets better. And I'm a big fan of that podcast guy. Gay guy. He's very good on bullying. I think he started the It Gets Better movement. And then, Troma has always, and all my movies have been about the underdog. And there's no greater underdog than two under bitches having a lesbianic relationship, falling in love, and getting bullied by the other kids in the high school. I don't want to say underdog, that's why I said under bitch, but that's probably not something I should have said. But what are you going to do? I'm sure I'm going to get shamed by third-rate bloggers after this goes up.
Right.
That happens. What can you do? By the way, may I give a big shout out to Guillermo del Toro? I don't watch the Oscars, but I understood that his movie, The Shape of Water, won. And congratulations. Talking about underdogs, Guillermo spoke out for the woman on fish fucking, which
Yes.
I think has long been neglected by the movements of the day. And we've created hashtag Oscars So Whitefish to commemorate all that. And also, that fucking fish looks an awful lot like not to me, but to the fans. I've been getting a lot of fan on my Twitter and Facebook and Instagram saying that that fish thing in Shape of Water looks just like Toxie. And I have to say, somebody put the two together. I put it on my Instagram, but they do look alike, I have to say. Actually, the woman in Shape of Water looks a little like Toxie, too. So there you go.
Well, I have to say, in your part inside of Return, you do a little bit of an homage to Silence of the Lambs.
Don't be a spoiler now.
I will not. I will not. But
Yeah.
I will say that at one moment I thought I may have been watching an outtake from one of the new Insidious movies. I thought Miss Shea was in the scene. So somehow with that hair, you could do a good Shea impersonation.
Well, thank you. The thing is, I've asked people to be naked, men and even women, to be naked in my movies for 50 years. And so I thought, well, Uncle Lloyd should do the same. And I challenge Martin Scorsese right now at this very minute. He's had people be naked. I think it's time for Martin Scorsese. I think
Guillermo?
Well, Guillermo, does he? I don't know that he's had people being naked, but if he has, I challenge him. I don't recall naked people in his movie, but I haven't
Shape
seen
of
all.
Water.
Was she naked in that?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Oh, I saw. I must have dozed off or something. But it's a great movie. It made me cry. And Florida Project should have been nominated. Again, I didn't see the Oscars. They're not the best movies for sure.
Right.
Although Shape of Water is a wonderful film and Get Out is a wonderful film, but the general nominees were pretty lame. And if you want proof, you can look at last year's list. Does anybody even remember any of them other than La La Land? I don't think, and certainly in 30 years they will be forgotten. Whereas the Museum of Modern Art keeps booking and showcasing Troma movies. Just this year alone, they premiered Return to Newcombe High Volume 1. They showed Tromeo and Juliet, written by James Gunn.
Yep.
I don't know what happened to him, but I wish him well. And they also just played a print of A Story of a Junkie. All of those movies were obliterated by the MPAA rating board, and now suddenly the museums realize that 30, 50 years later we are making art, and good for them. The Museum of the Moving Image did a whole day of Return to Newcombe High, Return to Newcombe High, and then some of the class of Newcombe High from the 80s. It was a whole day at the Museum of the Moving Image in New York City. So finally, like Van Gogh, although Van Gogh never got any recognition when he was alive, at least I don't have to cut my ear off. I've gotten some recognition, so I've postponed cutting my ear off. My wife has done a pretty good job with cutting my balls off. So,
as it will be, as it will be. Well, you have Van Gogh's madness, so
24 years. Actually, there's a very good documentary, a new documentary about Van Gogh that looks. I started watching it, but I switched over to Big Mouth.
So
Big
I
Mouth.
watched Return to Return, and I have to say, I think it's great. It has all of this incredibly nasty and disgusting and offensive stuff in it, but just like all Troma films, I leave them with a sense of glee. I am exhilarated by these movies.
There's heart and soul. Everybody, all the world loves a love story, and Chrissy and Lauren have a beautiful love story that is interwoven along with, during 2 volumes of the movie. Tarantino's the one that put that idea in my head because we were at Sitges Festival in Spain years ago, a long time ago. We each had a film there, and I asked his advice, and he was saying that I ought to do something monumental so that it's clear that I'm not just one of these festival movie people that come and go. So when he did Kill Bill in 2 volumes, and I very much enjoyed it, I thought it was really wonderful. I decided, well, I'll also be pretentious, except I'll do it for $800,000. The 2 volumes together were $800,000.
$800,000, fantastic.
Which is very little, and it looks like, basically we've made a $50 million movie for 700, 800, 900,000. So, and we still will lose money. That's the miracle of Lloyd Kaufman's 50-year. We can make movies for nothing and still lose money. Yeah.
The opposite of Corman in that way. So I watched, this movie is so much fun. It's got this onslaught of farce and satire and absurdism.
Farce and farts, may I say.
Oh, yes. Well,
never heard duck
heavy-duty farts.
If you don't see a duck farting, if you've never seen one, you will see one.
And duck rape, unintentional duck rape or unconsented.
Duck rape, yeah, but through the mouth.
Right, which was really something
we
to
give
see.
Too much away. Don't give any. We should not.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much more at all. What I'm going to talk about is
tons of. Suddenly, there's tons of. Today, there was a big article in one of the L.A. newspapers, and suddenly my phone is going crazy because our PR woman is getting now inundated with last-minute interest from the media. Even though the Oscars kind of saturated the world, that's why we got this playing time from the excellent movie theater, the Laemmle Fine Arts, and then the Laemmle NoHo, North Hollywood. But this is not, right after Oscars is kind of people have had enough with movies, so it's not the best playing time. But suddenly they've woken up. My phone is going crazy. So,
I like to think that I'm the barbarian that breaks through the gate and they all come in after me. So
I think, thank you so much you're a real fan. I can tell by what you clearly know the genre.
Yeah, I enjoy the genre very much, and I enjoy subgenres that are created unto themselves, and that's what I think Troma films are. It's kind of like with John Waters. He created a subgenre unto himself, and I believe that you've done that as well. I watched the original Newcombe High before watching these volumes, and
John Waters, I don't mind being compared to him. I prefer to be compared to Ethel Waters, who was a great singer.
Yes.
She immortalized Blue Moon and some Rodgers and Hart songs. But he went with the mainstream, right? He went in with New Line, a division of Warner Brothers. We've been totally independent, and right now we are economically blacklisted entirely, which is why we can't make money, because the industry has become an oligopoly, and all the paths to the public are controlled by 6 or 7 giant conglomerates. And that's not to say they're not Netflix and is making good shows or presenting good shows. But there's no way they will permit us to make any money, and we can't. So we don't put our movies on Netflix because they don't give you any money. They use us to subsidize their $8 billion of production.
Right. Now, you do, on the other hand, off of the Troma or the YouTube website, you have about 250 movies, Troma films, that people can watch pretty much for free, right?
Totally for free, yes. To thank our fans for 40 years of support, we decided 4 years ago to put all our library, bit by bit. We can't do it all at once because it's expensive. It costs editing time and all that. There's technical stuff. But every week we put up another film or a short piece or one of my make-your-own damn movie lessons and we put it up for free if you subscribe. Troma Movies on YouTube. Subscribe to Troma Movies on YouTube. You'll get an email every week telling you what additional art or content is being put up on Troma Movies on YouTube that week. And if you want to have the world premiere movies, the movies we've made or acquired in the last 4 years, you can go to Troma Now. Troma Now is and it's on VHX, which is part of Vimeo, but it's $4.99 a month. The first month is free. Watch.troma.com. Watch.troma.com. All world premiere movies, except for there are also curated movies that Uncle Lloyd curates every month that usually pertain to a certain theme, like the Valentine's Day theme, or now it's a Springtime Madness theme or something this month. But every month there are 2 or 3 world premiere movies on Troma Now, and it's doing very, very well now. That's why I went to Comcast, because they want to migrate Troma Now from us to one of their platforms, and so I had the good fun of, even though I hate Comcast, I got to have the good fun of getting mugged outside the restaurant when I was waiting for them. So that was a lot of fun in Philadelphia. Philadelphia, we teamed that up with the premiere of Return to Newcombe High, a.k.a. Volume 2 in Philadelphia. Packed house. It was amazing. And a rainy Thursday. That was the opening. Just like the L.A., we're opening on Thursday for some reason.
Right. Now,
and in a way, that's a good thing, because everybody else opens Friday. So here we are, Troma Day. Like, we're 30 years ahead of the pack when we make movies, so why not be ahead of the pack when we open movies?
Right. Now, you mentioned that you saw it with a packed house, and every filmmaker has something that they look for as an audience response that lets them know that it's really working. What is it that you're hoping that happens with audiences when they watch this film?
Well, the most important thing about a Troma movie is that it's very, very entertaining. The second important thing about this particular movie, Return to Newcombe High, a.k.a. Volume 2, is that it deals with very important social issues, as do all of the Troma movies. If you see Troma's War today, made in 1985 and totally disemboweled by the MPAA, and the head of the MPA named Hefner, not the good Hefner, but this was shit Dr. Hefner, he told my partner, Michael Herz, that Troma's War was no fucking good. NFG. Those were his words. They're not supposed to critique your movie.
Right.
They're supposed to deal with the elements that might be subject to censorship. And they totally disemboweled Troma's War. Today, it's still in film festivals. 30 years later, it's in tons of film festivals. Everybody wants a 35 print. The Blu-ray is a huge success. And everything in Troma's War from 1985 or 86 is totally fresh today. I mean, the Toxic Avenger, all about the environment. 1983, way before Al Gore invented the internet and stole those Nobel Peace Prize from those scientists, right? I mean, Troma is always that's our problem, and that's why these chicken shit film festivals like Toronto and Sundance and Cannes, they're afraid to play a movie that might change the world. They want to play something safe. So, they don't play Poultrygeist Night of the Chicken Dead because it's anti-McDonald's. It says something that might change the world. So instead, they wait 2 more years and they show a zombie movie about beavers. Perfectly acceptable movie for a small screen. You don't need to see it on a big screen. Perfectly entertaining. But Poultrygeist is a major masterpiece. They totally missed it. And I imagine in 30 years, they'll play it at the Museum of Modern Art or whatever. And once I get hit by a bus, the people who work for us say, once I get hit by a bus, the whole world will, he was so brilliant. He changed the world. He was great.
Right.
He influenced Tarantino, and he discovered the South Park guys and Oliver Stone and James Gunn and Eli Roth and Trent Haga and Fergie and
John G. Alvinson.
Well, I didn't discover him, but I attached myself to him. My first job was on his film Joe, which is There's an interesting thing.
Peter Boyle, man, wow, that was a rough movie.
Joe, this says it all. Joe was made for $150,000 for a shitty little company called Canon. John G. Avildsen took an exploitation script and made it brilliant. He hired Norman Wexler. He said, "I'm not going to make shit. I'm going to make something really interesting." So he hired Norman Wexler. He got Peter Boyle He got Susan Sarandon. Those are their first movies. Joe was a huge hit, and it got nominated. This is a little $150,000 movie made in New York with all unknowns, and my first job, nominated for an Academy Award screenwriting. Today, no way would that happen. It would not happen. Even if you did have a black lesbian, a quadra amputee as the main character, even if you had every snowflake and every nasty fascist in the movie, you still wouldn't get nominated. It didn't matter. Unless you're part of one of the major studios or Netflix or Amazon, you don't even get, what happened with Florida Project? That was infinitely better than 3 billboards to a shithole, or what's the other thing with the thread, right?
Oh, yeah, the invisible thread.
Yeah, he didn't need to get another Oscar. He's got it. And that's why they gave it to that film, for him. There's no other reason. Even the fashion was incorrect. It was not historically correct. So I know these are big-time directors, but these are not the best movies. And honestly, Return to Newcombe High, a.k.a. Volume 2, in a fair world, that would be up there. It's a much more interesting, it's a film. It's not put together by a committee. It's not put together by what's safe and what can we sell and how do we get into Sundance. And it's put together from the heart and soul of Lloyd Kaufman, Catherine Cochran, Zach Amico, Travis Campbell, Gabe Friedman, a team that I've been working with now for 7 years, and many others. And you'll meet them if any of you out there in the ether can come to the Lemley Aria Fine Arts in Beverly Hills Thursday at approximately 7 o'clock. We're going to have Troma celebrities there. We'll have the stars, the cast. We'll have some people, maybe John Voight and friends of mine who are well known. Maybe what's his name from Criminal Minds? Matthew Gray Gubler is a fanatic about Troma. You never know with these people, but some of them have. Trey and Matt may do a video for it. So it's going to be a great night. And then on the 9th, we have another opening at the NoHo, North Hollywood, in Lemley, North Hollywood. There's an art show in the lobby of that theater, as well as in Beverly Hills. There's an art show from Hyena Gallery, a tribute to Return to Newcombe High art show. It's basically a pageant. It's a Troma pageant, and it's all fan-oriented. Even Greg Lemley is a fan, right? He's been tweeting and putting in all sorts of. We're honored to have Lloyd Kaufman after all these years, and so it's all fan-based. And I think if we can get a good crowd, people will love it. They'll laugh. They'll be moved. The movie has heart. It's got energy. It's got stunts. It's got mutations. I mean, it's got plenty of sex, and it's great.
Yeah,
it takes chances, and you may love it, you may hate it, but you'll never forget this Troma movie. You will have a ride in the cinema that you have never had before.
Exactly. You have never seen what that movie's like.
I'm hoping, Scott Bradley, that after your Skype with me, that maybe there'll be a theater or two in your area that may want to play it, and I will come there personally because I go to L.A. Frequently, and the people that handle our West Coast conventions and theaters live in your neck of the wood in Santa Rosa, and they are fans. They are fans. They don't get paid. They just do this because they love it. So they would love to create an event in the San Francisco, Northern California area. I know we have something going on in Fresno, but so far nothing in San Francisco.
Oh, I can see that happening.
This for 50 years. So maybe. Maybe after 10 years.
Well, I have to say that this movie, there's not one scene that is in it that doesn't have 3 or 4 crazy moments in it with a ton of jokes. It's kind of like when I was a kid, the smart kids read Mad Magazine, and there was all this irreverence and Marx Brothers style humor, and that is kind of what I see as the hallmark of a really strong and good Troma film, is that there's just this consistent energy and pace of the craziness.
Well, and funny you should say that, because we just got a review in from Dartmouth University from the librarian of all places. Oh. He said he saw the movie in Philadelphia, and that he still can't forget. He's been thinking about it all week. He wants to see it again. He said if the Marx Brothers were going to make a movie, this would be the movie they make. So it's interesting you mentioned the Marx Brothers. And he said he's obsessed with it. He wants to see it again, and he missed so much. There's so much going on in the background. That's why you need to see it on a big screen. all the Troma movies that I've written and directed, or whatever, the ones that I'm, that are filmed by Lloyd Kaufman, they all are made for the big screen. There's so many little goofy details in the background, and you can't see it on your TV screen or laptop. You got to see it with an audience on a big screen and really have fun. And you don't have to be drunk or drugged up or anything. Although I know a lot of my fans do partake of ganja, as do I. But the movie is great sober. In fact, you see a lot more in the theater if you're sober.
Right. I was just going to say, I don't need to take anything. You facilitate my hallucinations with every one of the films. You basically create them for me. I'm not quite sure I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Now, what I love about these movies is, you're over the years, when I watched Newcombe High, you're still attacking those that take themselves too seriously and the corrupt people that are out there. But the targets have changed a little. And it's very interesting watching the movie. You mentioned both snowflakes and fascists when you were talking before. And there is, nobody is sacred in these movies. And I think there's a theme that I felt in the movie came from one line of dialogue, which was, this is what you get in the age of snark. So this is a movie that a Troma film made for the age of snark. So it is really out there. It takes it to another limit. And I mean, you're hitting GMOs, bullying, gender equality, dumbing down of the news, the entertainment shows that are taking the place of the news, core curriculum, prejudice, cultural appropriation, the Disney Corporation, people using medical conditions to cover their shitty behavior with douchebagatosis. I mean, there's all of this great, wonderful, insane stuff.
You got that film. You really understood it. Thank you. That means more to me than an Oscar. Was that you just laid out what that film is? What Return to Newcombe High, aka Volume 2 is?
Yeah. Well, not only that, you don't even spare yourself. And that's what I think is so amazing, and where it goes into Marx Brothers territory is that the movie is irreverent about the Troma universe. Now, I love where you say, this is the story of today's complicated young teenagers, and who better to illuminate those themes than a 70-year-old man? It's like a pie right in the face to yourself as well.
Laugh, too. Gets a very big laugh.
Oh, it's fantastic because
the opening credits, aren't they beautiful? Aren't they gorgeous?
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. And there's a guest is.
You can say that because everybody knows that Stan Lee and Lemmy and Joe Flyshaker. Actually, Lemmy and Joe Flyshaker's last movie is this.
Yes.
Sadly, and the movie is dedicated to them.
Yes.
The movie starts off with this totally downer. You hear the wind going, and there's this sad thing that's dedicated to the memory of Lemmy and Joe, and it's like, oh no, it's so sad.
And then immediately into a take on a Brian De Palma film that's very well known, and it's done very well. And any somberness is gone. Yeah, it goes away fast. First 10 seconds.
The opening credits done by a Troma fan. They're beautiful. The guy's in England, and he is a major artist who does retro paintings, and he just loves Troma. So he also did the posters, the theatrical posters, which are kind of 80s style, but very beautifully rendered. And he did all the opening credits, and I don't believe we paid for them, or if we did, it was, I don't even know what it was because it was so little. I mean, our fans really are the reason that Troma exists. And that's why we need to preserve net neutrality on the internet, because that's the free, open, and diverse media. That's the last medium that is democratic. And without it, you will no longer have an innovation like Kickstarter. You won't even, Netflix wouldn't be here without net neutrality. Troma certainly needs the free, open, and diverse and level playing field of the internet. We have just as much power as Disney, and you too. If you have something interesting, the public goes there. It's democratic. It's not like the movie business. It's not like the distribution where the theaters are. There are basically only 2 theater chains in the whole country, and then there's 300 or 400 independents, and we have to go to the independents who are lovely, but we can only get 1 theater in L.A. or 2 theaters. How much can we advertise? Nobody even knows, except for Scott Bradley. Nobody knows the opening.
Well, certainly, you know your fans. Yes.
Well, I love my fans, and we wouldn't be here without them. Our fans operate as if we were. They operate like employees. They're out there. They go to the theaters to talk to the managers to play our movies. They pick me up at the airport. They in Los Angeles, fans are dressing up as Toxie and Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD to help promote outside the theater, point of purchase. They drive me around. We have an art show tonight. I'm staying out in the Marina Del Rey. If I had to take Uber, I did have to do it a couple of times. It's $50. It's $50 to get to Burbank. Every dime means something to Troma. So I've got a fan is nice enough to drive the commissioner and me to Burbank tonight and back for the Hyena Gallery tribute show to return to Newcombe High, where all these artists have created art, painting, sculpture, other things, all a tribute to this movie. And
well, that's one of the things I don't think people know about you is that you support the fans as well. A lot of people send you fan art to your office, and if you like it, you license it and you give them share of the royalties, and you even have an art exhibit at the premiere.
Sometimes the fans will they'll make a poster and then they give us 50 to sell at conventions or something. But even if they don't, there's tons of bootleg Troma T-shirts out there. It's advertising. I mean,
right.
Sure, we can license action figures, and we do have some. We have reaction figures. There's a toy company that makes Toxic Avenger and Toxic Crusader stuff. But there are plenty of things out there, action figures, sculptures, paintings that people are selling. And it's all, to me, that all helps Troma, because we certainly aren't getting any help from the mainstream media, and we're certainly not getting any help from the industry. So it's all about the fans, and hopefully net neutrality stays where it is.
Yeah. Now, back to the movie, talking about the Troma universe and why I think knowing your fans is so important. We love that you are irreverent about your own canon. So in a time period where Star Wars fans are disavowing movies because they're not following the canon the way it should, you destroy the canon. You basically have Godzilla tromp on it. You have people with superimposed heads for characters that were in the first movie. You have a character who apparently took 25 years to get through high school, and it's mentioned that that's like that. What made you decide to be so irreverent about the movie itself?
Well, to some extent, it's not. I was a big fan. Again, I'm 72 years old, so I grew up. My mother was a theater person, and I am well read and well schooled, and we went to a lot of theater as a kid. Bertolt Brecht breaks the fourth wall, and I like that. Thornton Wilder, Our Town, and the other one with dinosaurs. I love that stuff where and Warhol. I discovered Warhol when I was at Yale, and I used to go down to the factory and just hang around where Warhol and the superstars were hanging around. I didn't really get to know him, but he knew my face, but I did work with Candy Darling and Ondine and Talia, whatever her name was, and Jackie Curtis and Andy Kay, and I really appreciated when Warhol would be filming, and suddenly an actor would turn to the camera and say, "Andy, I want to have lunch now," or whatever.
Right.
He'd keep that in the movie. He'd keep it in. And I thought, that's brilliant. That is terrific. And
that's one of my favorite moments in the film is your wife cameo.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, your wife's cameo is one of my favorites because that is just this jolt where we're in the middle of the film and suddenly you're arguing about a censorship moment because your wife is the film commissioner for New York State. So she's literally like having an argument that you guys probably have had at some point.
Yes.
And it just gets funnier and funnier because it starts with something that's not really that terrible and all of your fixes are worse and more heinous and horrible. And she just goes along with it. It's just a ton of fun. Now you mentioned Yale. Now I love one of my favorite jokes of both the earliest Newcombe High and this one was the Cretans who start out, they were in the National Honor Society in the first film, you know, these punks and their National Honor Society. This time they're the Glee Club. But now there's a new wrinkle. While they're beating people up, they sing barbershop quartet songs. Now, you graduated from Yale. Is this a nod to the a cappella group, the Spizzywinks?
I hate that. I hate the a cappella groups. I hate that shit. And the idea was they're nerds in the Glee Club, and then once they've mutated due to the I don't want to spoil, they suddenly have these wonderful singing voices. It's hilarious, in my opinion. It's hilarious. And also, I think the a cappella singing is just as offensive as the way they were when they were out of tune nerds.
Right.
I really didn't like the Whiffenpoofs. Although the Whiffenpoof is like the major historic Yale a cappella. It's all men, of course. And I think now they may be accepting a cis-identified, non-male, female, politically correct person. But I've only read that. I don't know if it's true. But I hate that stuff.
Yeah. So when you started out, when you're in Yale, you're not interested in making movies.
Love the Cretans. They love the Cretans. Yeah. I just was at a big invited to a huge convention. We had about 6 different fans wearing Cretan jackets and dressed up like the Cretans in Volume 1. It was amazing.
Oh, they're absolutely beautiful to look at, and they're hilarious. But I love that there are sound effects for each person. And if you're listening, you can find them. And it's very Mel Brooksian at certain points, which I really love as well.
And we make fun of them, too. There's a little bit of narration. I think I called them Hot Topic or something.
Yes, yep, Hot Topic. The narration is hilarious. There's one moment where you're talking about the Glee Club took over the Troma Seminole Native American land, and they were making they had 72.
The ancestors of the Glee Club.
Right, the ancestors of the Glee Club. Where else are you going to hear that line?
And then they built, they stole the land, and now it's been sold to corrupt Chinese and Russian billionaire bureaucrats who are going to build condos. It's so true. It's true. It's what they're doing. Go look at Long Island City in New York. Every building going up is Chinese. The Chinese are moving in. But at any rate, they're the most corrupt. I majored in Chinese studies, and my life ambition was to make a movie in China. I can speak the language a little bit. I can get around, and I have a daughter who's 100% fluent and can read it. And now China is the most corrupt. It's a dictatorship. They're committing genocide on the Tibetans. They murdered a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Liu Xiao, whatever his name is, who died in prison, who basically was murdered. I mean, it's a horrible, and they bootleg everything. We don't have one. Every movie we make is on the streets of China, and we don't get one penny. And I wouldn't mind it if the peasants, because most of that country are dirt poor, I wouldn't mind it if the revenue were going into something for the poor people. But it's not. It's going into the pocket of the generals. The military own most of the DVD and Blu-ray factories, and they also own the streaming services. So they're getting all our content for free and not paying a penny. And if you want to go on Troma's YouTube channel, the free channel, Troma Movies on YouTube, I did kind of a satirical tribute to the efficiency of the Chinese who, that's how they got the Olympics. You can see how efficient they were. They put out Poultrygeist Night of the Chicken Dead on video before we had even converted our 35 millimeter print to video format. So they must have bribed somebody at the Cannes Film Festival, grabbed a 35 millimeter print overnight, converted it to a Telecine Video Master, and then the DVDs were on the streets before we even made a conversion. And and it was a much nicer DVD box than the one we eventually except that we hadn't created the posters or the base, where you say the credit slug at the bottom. So the Chinese, no problem. They said it stars Alfred Molino, Poultry Guys stars Stanley Tucci, Alfred Molino, and then they put Ron Jeremy. The biggest star was Ron Jeremy, and they put his name twice.
Upstaged again by Ron Jeremy.
So, they're horrible, and the Russians too. Obviously, we know about.
Yeah.
These are people that these are really awful regimes.
So
horrible.
when you have worked with several people who have gone on to great fame, you mentioned some of them earlier. You went to school with Oliver Stone at Yale, and you started a studio, 15th Street Films. Didn't last very long because he was an underachiever, and so obviously it just was too much for you to handle.
I don't know whatever happened to him.
Yeah.
No, in second grade, I met Oliver Stone in second grade, and our fathers were best friends, and our parents were very tight. So we were very tight. And we lived 2 blocks away from each other in New York, and we'd have sleepovers as little kids, and he'd beat the shit out of me, and I'd go home crying. And it was a cycle. We went to camp, and he was a bully and a psycho. And I always knew, we went to Trinity School together. I knew that he would either be a great, great, great man, which he is, or he would be some kind of psychotic axe murderer like American Psycho.
Right.
He's both, but he hasn't murdered anyone, and he's a man of great integrity. He's not a sleazebag like 99% of the movie industry, but he is a scary dude. And he asked me to start a company with him at one point, and I just was too fearful. And, I don't think, even though I could have maybe made some more money, but I don't regret that particular decision because he is a scary fucking dude.
Right. Now, at the same point, you had another person that you worked with, and you still work with, Michael Herz. You're still partners after all these years.
44 years. Yes.
What clicked? What clicked? What worked so well?
Well, he went to summer camp. Michael Herz and my brother Charles Kaufman, Charles Mother's Day, being Eli Roth's favorite horror film, and Eli Roth, began with Troma. He is obsessed with Troma. My brother's a great guy, and my brother loved Michael. And when I was at Yale, my brother said to Michael, "Why don't you go look up my brother?" I'm a couple of years older than Michael Herz, and I had a black and white TV, one of those TVs you had to hit the thing, and the picture would keep going up like that,
Right.
And Michael wanted to watch TV, so he had to talk to me. And when he got out of college, he went to law school. But he didn't want to be a lawyer. And one day, his wife, Maris, saw the newspapers that there was a huge ad for Cry Uncle, a full-page ad for Cry Uncle, which was an X-rated movie directed by John G. Avildsen. Maris put her thumb over the MPAA rating thing in the newspaper ad, and she took her mother to see Cry Uncle. They loved it, and it's a very funny movie. And I had a big credit because I helped raise money for the film, and I believe I was the production manager, even though I knew nothing. I had a piece of it. So I was I had a big credit. So they saw my credit and they told Michael, "Hey, if you don't want to be a lawyer, why don't you go check out what Lloyd is doing?" And Michael came by and we made a couple of movies together and with some other people who turned out to be not so nice. And then we had bad distribution and finally we decided, look, let's make a movie. We'll distribute it ourselves and see if that works. And that's when we created Troma in 1974. Squeeze Play came out, was a huge hit,
right?
And basically paid for the Troma building and bought us some bank account so we could keep the payroll. We could pay people and actually start the company. Squeeze Play, again, nobody would play it every Troma movie we make. Nobody will touch it because they haven't seen anything like it. And right. Squeeze came out before the Porkies. So we had the place to ourselves, raunchy comedy, the R-rated raunchy comedy. So we would make 100 prints, Waitress, Squeeze Play, First Turn On, Stuck on You.
Vincent D'Onofrio was in First Turn On, right?
Yes, he was discovered in that First Turn On. That's the movie that Michael Herz turned down Madonna for, just so you know that he's a fucking idiot. But he's a guy. He's basically the boss. Yeah. I don't do anything that he says no. If he says no, I don't do it. He's the real boss. But he's like our CEO, and he's kept this ship afloat somehow. We only have about 10 employees, but we've made payroll and for 44 years. And when we make a movie, we end up with about 80 people. But He's kept us going, and we keep buying movies and distributing and losing money, and
Right.
somehow we don't make any money, but somehow the Troma we're like a cork on the ocean with about 7 giant aircraft carriers that keep swamping us.
Well, I think a main part of the ingredients of what became Troma films that we really think of came from those sex comedies, the teen sex comedies, because you took an absurdism in those as well. I mean, they already were weird. I went through the teen sex comedy moments, and it was kind of like kids from Mars. Who talks like this? Who gets this lucky? Who has these horrible things? But you took it even one step further, and that's the key to exploitation. Now, exploitation.
The thing is, when we did those movies, nobody understood. The theaters didn't get it, and we finally got a sneak preview in Norfolk, Virginia, for Squeeze Play. It was with the In-Laws with Peter Falk.
Yes.
And the audience went nuts. They loved it. And the next Monday, American what is it? American
Film Institute, AFI.
No, they fuck. AFI is a scumbag. No, these are also scumbag. American American Multiplex, the big chain. It's the largest chain in the country, I think, or Regal.
AMC.
AMC, that's it. And they called us the next Monday. They wanted 100 prints. We had one. So we had to bootstrap. We would show them one print. We'd make a little money. We'd make another print, and eventually we had a couple of hundred prints. And again, all those movies had very serious subjects. The Squeeze Play was basically about the women's liberation movement and the ERA, which was a big issue. But it was in the context of kind of an Animal House thing,
Right.
women's softball team. A Waitress was all about the same issue, pretty much. At any rate, each movie was about an important social or political issue, and the audience likes that. They want to be entertained, but they also don't want baby food. And the baby food, for $200 million, you got to make kind of baby food. I don't know that you have to please an awful lot of people, so you can't really say what you want.
Right.
But for 500,000, you can, and if you don't really care about the money, you can say anything you want.
Yeah.
And,
Exploitation isn't just about what's contained
well,
in the movie,
you keep
though.
using that. You keep using the word
Schlock or exploitation? Which do
No,
you
those
prefer?
are bad words. Schlock means shit.
Okay.
Exploitation. A movie with Justin Bieber, you're exploiting Justin Bieber. A record album with Kanye West. What they're exploiting Kanye West. They also have every fucking fuck, nigger, and every, so they're exploiting that too. Everything that is shown in the mainstream is exploitation.
I agree.
That's why they get those big stars. They exploit the stars, right?
Yeah.
Black Panther, I hear it's a really great movie, but they sure are exploiting the the elements within that movie, right? So
Right.
exploitation. It's used in a derogatory way to put down independent art. But if it's a $200 million version of Return to Newcombe High and had hardcore fucking in it, and hardcore, and if it was a snuff film with Meryl Streep and George Clooney, suddenly it wouldn't be an exploitation film, would it?
We should talk at some point, because I have the same thing. I fly the banner of horror film, and I talk about it as art. And I actually had a tag going through the Oscars called "Say Horror," because of course they're changing it into social justice thriller and things like that. So I almost like proudly appropriate horror, and instead of worrying about the word, I actually make it as if that's the word you should be using.
Yeah,
And,
so many of these festivals, they call themselves a science fiction and fantasy festival.
yes, yeah.
Meanwhile, where it's full of horror, and that's the only reason any of the fans go. They don't go for the fantasy; they go for the horror. They go
Right.
for the outrageousness. They don't want watered down, acceptable stuff. That's what a festival should be all about. That's why
Right.
our movies get invited to every real festival that exists.
Well, I really love what happened in the VHS era, and what I was getting at was going to be the exploiting of a market, where really marketing, showmanship is the biggest thing. You basically had these movies go into theaters before the video market, and I'm assuming it was because there was kind of a glut, many more theaters than there was product, because the multiplexes started happening. But when it
It
came
wasn't that. That's wrong. The reason was that the the theaters were not all consolidated and controlled by the major studios. There was a rule that the FCC enforced called the Consent Decree of 1948, which prohibited the theaters from being owned and controlled by the studios. And also, there were 18 territories of theaters. So there were sub-distributors who dealt with family-owned chains all over the country, and there was competition among the chains, and our movies sold a shitload of popcorn, and they still do. But unfortunately, the theaters are under the thumb of the perverted Rupert Murdoch, the perverted Summer Meyerson, the perverted Harvey Weinstein. They're under the thumb of the perverted people who run the industry. So therefore, the only theaters we can get into are the independent theaters, and thank the good Lord for those. They're very good, and some of them are much more beautiful than these multiplexes.
Yeah. Did the VHS?
To this day, our movies sell huge amounts of concession.
I'll bet.
And when they play our movies, when an independent theater, when Alamo Drafthouse plays a Troma movie, they don't pay us 90% of the gate the way they do with the Black Panther, right?
Right.
We're lucky we get 30. If we're lucky, we get 50%.
So talking about independence,
right in the back of the bus, just like the 50s in the South.
Right. So once again, you talked about the independents. The mom and pop video stores of the 80s would be something that I was very, very fond of. And
yes.
Did you feel the energy that this was going to be maybe the way that Troma was going to really branch out? Once you had Toxic Avenger, I think that really, that's what I remember. Rabid Grannies, Monster in the Closet, Surf Nazis Must Die, Fat Guy Goes Nutsoid. All that happened like immediately, and you were a staple.
Those are great movies. Our philosophy with Troma was, and still is to this day, make a movie that's entertaining. Put something in that movie that might be commercial. A gun. You may not believe this, but Americans love guns. I don't. It's kind of weird, but they do. They love guns, especially if you're a fat 50-year-old fuck in the NRA. Those are the people that we're going to rely on to protect us when the Russians attack, right? That's why we have to debate. Anyway, I don't want to digress. So put something commercial. If you're making a movie about raccoons, give the father raccoon put the gun in his hand, right? We put a gun in the hand of the monkey in Sergeant Kabuki Man at NYPD just so we could have a gun. Or put a naked man. I'll go buy a ticket to see Scott Bradley, see your penis. Or put a car crash, or have someone jump out the window. Put something commercial, and then make something that you believe in, something that comes from your heart and your soul and your brain.
Adenoids.
And make something that is art. Make some art, as I said in Terra Firma, my most personal.
I love that movie.
Let's make some art, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the theory of the films, but also. We wanted to own our movies. We saw the tragedy of film directors like Harold, what's his name? Harold Langdon, who was up there with Chaplin and did movies for Cat. Basically killed himself with alcohol. We saw so many artists who did not own their art who died on the side of the road. And so we wanted to own. Chaplin owned his art. He got harassed by the FBI. He got kicked out of the United States. Hey, what's all this bullshit about the wonderful FBI? When has the FBI ever been wonderful? What have they ever done but kill? They did kill what's his name in the theater in Chicago, the guy with the big penis, the gangster.
Dillinger.
Dillinger. Yeah, they killed him. Big deal. But what is the big penis? Suddenly they're so great about? We have to respect. They got 30,000, mainly white men, getting 200,000 a year in salary and perks and Medicare and what do you call it? The things that you and I don't get.
Benefits of any type.
Well, after you retire, you get
severance pay.
50,000 a year. What do they call that?
Severance pay.
Huh?
Severance.
They get for the rest of their fucking lives, and you're paying for it. I can't remember what you call it because I don't get it. Because I'm an American entrepreneur. I create jobs, and I don't attack Martin Luther King like the FBI did. I'm not a a harasser of artists like the FBI is, and the cross-dressing, closeted homosexual who ran the FBI
Right.
for 50 years.
J. Edgar, yeah.
Right? That guy was a piece of shit. They were anti-Semitic. They certainly hated the black people. They harassed. They framed Martin Luther King. Suddenly they're heroes, American heroes. Fuck the FBI. Where did they become such heroes? Tell me where other than TV. There wasn't
Right.
a TV show, FBI with the
Remember Simulus Jr.? Was that it?
yes, Simplest Jr. Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Other than that, see, we're all fucked up. This is a horrible age we're in. You have free speech as long as you don't say anything, right? That's where we are. And the FBI, suddenly they're heroes. I don't get it. I don't understand it. They've done more to against the First Amendment and more to promote the guns in the streets than anybody.
Yeah. You may have just answered my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. Why do you think it's so important for movies like Troma Movies to be made today?
Because it's art, and you need a how shall I say it? The healthiest society is a society that has a mixture of culture, a mixture of races, a mixture of talents, a mixture of arts, a mixture of enterprise. Look at a dog. The dog that's purely bred. They have shoulder problems. They got the
hybrid vigor.
Yeah, exactly. Amsterdam is going through a golden age because it's a multicultural city. It's a city where people talk to each other, and there are all sorts of colors and persuasions and blah 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 blah. And we in this country, it seems that there's no nuance. If you're not with me, Bush said it. If you're not with me, you're against me. There's no discussion. And Yale University is as guilty of this as any place on the face of the earth. And that's supposed to be one of the smartest places. That was my alma mater, and I'm going to be going to the 50th reunion, and I'm astounded by the stupidity. Well, here's what's happening at Yale. The number of professors are going down, but the number of administrators, like the political police, political correctness police, or they call it something else, comfort administrators, and sensitivity deans, the dean of sensitivity or something. So administrators, and that's true all over. Hey, Berkeley, ground zero for free speech. You can't even talk there. They had free speech weekend. Nobody showed up because the kids are throwing stones at people who speak. They don't even debate, right? $400,000 worth of damage because they had a right-wing speaker. And sure, he's a nut. And sure, he's a fascist and he sucks. But let him speak and then destroy him with the words. Don't. It's really ridiculous. And the problem is you have a lot of stupid, uneducated people because our educational system is crap and our health system is crap. So between the two of them, we've got and the student loans, right? All these wonderful young people are waiting on tables and driving Ubers so they can pay their rent and pay off their student loans. So instead of curing cancer, they're wasting their time. The most creative time of their brains and their heart and their soul. They're waiting on tables and serving beer at a bar, bartending and getting, if they're non-male, they get picked on by drunken salesmen.
Right.
Advertising executives, right?
Right. So 40 years of Troma, right?
I'm not bitter because I had 2 seconds in Guardians of the Galaxy, right? I'm on screen for 2 seconds in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what people are excited about, right? Yeah. I got more
Slither
reinforcement. I got more positive reinforcement from 2 seconds in that movie, and it's a masterpiece, no problem. But I worked on Rocky. I'm in Rocky. I think that's equally a masterpiece.
Oh,
the point is, I've spent 50 years building up a body of work. It's 2 seconds of Guardians. Fuck, that's fucked up. I'm sorry.
So what has changed in how Troma movies are made now as opposed to back in the Toxie days, if anything? Do you still dumpster dive at CBS?
You've been on Troma Movies on YouTube. You've seen our videos there. There are lots of make your own damn movie lessons, and it's all free, and 250 movies, as you mentioned. Well, the big thing on Return to Newcombe High and Return to Newcombe High is it was shot on digital. And we used the Arri Alexa, and it took me a while, and it took the technology a while to get better than 35 millimeter. I I prefer the digital look now than I to the 35 millimeter look. So that's a big change for me. Other than that, I just evolve as an actor and as a director, and the reason I've been acting more is that for non-union, low-budget movies, old people don't want to work for free. Old people, if they're any good, they will be in the Screen Actors Guild, and they won't need to work for free or for a small payment. That I mean, we pay our people, but we pay them very little. They're there to have a life experience, and if they're young and talented, they might become the next Trey Parker and Matt Stone, or the next Samuel L. Jackson, or the next Fergie, or the dead guy in the car crash.
Yeah. Do you still do open auditions?
Yes, we're about to, starting March 15th. We're having the way we start auditions, and thank you again for being so well prepared. You really studied your Troma. The first step of auditioning is we have people come in, we give them 3 minutes to do anything they want, and we videotape it. And then I look at the stuff, and the people with some energy, and it doesn't matter what it is. They could have a snake, or they could do push-ups, or they could recite Hamlet, or do a circus act, or anything for 3 minutes. The ones who show a little bit of energy, then we bring them back, and we try to figure out what part they should read for, because we're making a movie this summer. So starting March 15th, we're looking for also people who can build us the interior of a large boat. We need like a captain's quarters, a captain's meeting room, and a big yacht. So if there's anybody out there who likes to build sets, who can build sets in a movie studio format where the flats move, contact me, especially if you are a Troma fan and don't mind working for very less. The crews we have are great. Usually they're very important camera people and lighting people, but they want to have an experience where they can experiment and go on something that they'll never forget, and make a movie that when people see it, they won't believe it, as opposed to making your typical Saw Part 82 or whatever.
Have you ever had anything that happened at an open call that you said, okay, that's going to be in the movie? Somebody came in and did something absolutely crazy or outrageous.
Well,
I mean, I'm thinking heavy set guy with a Prince Albert. Was that written, or did he come in and go, hey, I'll be naked, and you look down and you go, holy shit, you've got a Prince Albert?
Well, we do. We give people a questionnaire, and on that questionnaire, part of it says, are you okay with doing nudity? Because our movies, some characters have to be naked, and very naked.
So yeah, very few aren't.
Zach Amico, who apparently had a Prince Albert. I didn't even know what the Prince Albert was. I just knew my history, and I've been to the Victoria and Albert Museum. But there it was, and I think Zach Amico came back. Asta Paredes, who plays Chrissy, she said at the Museum of Modern Art that she was called back 12 times before she actually got the part, and she had to audition with several actors and non-male actors. She had to audition naked later on as we got closer to the selections, so we could see if people are comfortable with that.
So I know we're running out of time, so I want to start winding it down. And I mean, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how much I admire.
Great. Thank you so much for your knowledge and your questions, and they're great. I mean, it's so refreshing. So many of my interviews this week have been, they're mainstream, but they don't do any research. They ask, they kind of say, "Oh, tell us about Troma. Exactly what do you?"
Yeah. What does it mean? What is Troma?
What's your career?
Right. Oh, God.
It's North or South career. What do you want? But, it's a little insulting. But I'm grateful for any media. So, and we're not Black Panther. We're a $400,000 movie.
Sure. There's so much to admire, the tenacity, the imagination, how prolific you are. But I think the biggest thing is your magnanimity. I think you support Matt Stone, Trey Parker when they made Cannibal the musical. Father's Day, Astron 6, Jeremy Gillespie's gone on to do The Void and The Editor.
The Void is amazing. The Void is fabulous.
Is that not an incredible film for nothing?
Well, Father's Day is an incredible film.
Yes.
It's brilliant. I mean, that's a movie that
that's a Troma film.
Invited to the Toronto Festival or Sundance because it deals with some amazing contemporary issues, and it's a beautiful film. But it's independent, so tough shit. But The Void, I think, because Canadian government supported it, I think it got into a lot more mainstream festivals because of that. And it's a great film. And Astron 6, those guys are increasingly talented.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The Editor is another really great film.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that was right after Father's Day. They used Father's Day. The Canadian government gave them $250,000 for The Editor, and thanks to Father's Day.
Yeah, it's a wonderful stuff. So you've really worked with a lot of different people. You had a dedication to Lemmy Kilminster as well as Joe Fleischaker, and you really stay loyal to actors and supporters that will probably deal with you and stale cheese or whatever it is that you're feeding them.
The famous people are pretty nice to us. I mean, James Gunn, I just got a call from him. He's going to stick me in a movie he's producing. I think it's in late April. I'm going down to Atlanta to be in his new movie. He's producing it. He's not directing. They're not. Eli Roth is great. I mean, most of them have stayed, in touch. And I can't call up Trey Parker and say, hey, you want to have lunch? And I don't. But and every day I get people who want me to. Can you put me in touch with Trey Parker?
All right.
Oh, you're still talking to Oliver Stone? And I haven't talked to him for 30 years.
Most importantly, though, I think you encourage people to make their own damn movies. You have the book, Make Your Own Damn Movie, and the DVDs, Make, Direct, Sell. So advice. I think the favorite advice that I got out of Make Your Own Damn Movie was making movies is like life itself. There are no rules. Just go out there and do it. What 3 pieces of advice would you give listeners who want to make their own damn movies?
I would give them 2 thoughts. One, if you want the Oscar and you want the hookers and the cocaine and the Rolls Royces and the bullshit, you've got to go and work your way up the food chain in California. There's no other way to do it, I'm afraid. Or you stay in your local town. Thanks to the digital revolution, which has democratized the making of cinema, young people are making wonderful movies for $5,000. I mean, we have some movies on Troma Now. You go watch.troma.com. They're made for, some of them are made for $5,000, and they're better than the shit that was in the Oscars. Check it out. The first month is free. Watch.troma.com. And finally, the third thing is, to thine own self be true, which was a phrase coined by one William Shakespeare, who wrote a best-selling book called 101 Money-Making Screen Idiots, otherwise known as Hamlet. So do what's in your heart. It's art. It's art. This is the hardest fucking thing in the world, to be an independent filmmaker. There's nothing harder. Believe me, there's nothing harder. Maybe being a Rohingya, for sure being a Rohingya and being exterminated by the Nobel Prize-winning woman who's running Burma, yes, that's harder. Having your babies pitchforked and having your young girls getting raped up the ass by soldiers from Myanmar with whom we are having diplomatic relations. It's a disgrace. So that's worse. But making movies independently, there's nothing harder. So bravo to anybody who makes his or her own damn movie, but you can be a nurse, you can be a teacher, you can have a productive, decent career and help society and make a movie once a year. Save some money and you make your own damn movie. And as long as we have net neutrality, you go on Kickstarter, get your relatives and friends to scrape a few bucks together or your fans, and you make your own damn movie. And I've written 7 books that are truly inspiring. They show you that movie making is not a rocket science. It's something that takes logic, it takes heart, and soul and craft. You can't just pick up you have to keep doing it. And you learn every time you're doing it, you're learning something. But a lot of it is logic. James Gunn is not an overnight sensation. He moved to California after 2 or 3 years at Troma, and he wrote for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and the same with Eli Roth, and the same with Trent Hager now. Trent Hager, who wrote Citizen Toxie and was my assistant for a couple of years, he stars in Terra Firma, and he wrote Citizen Toxie and plays one of the diaper mafia people. He's now starting to make it. He has 68 Kill with Matthew Gray Gubler. He's got a movie. He's up and running. But he's been there for 10 or 12 years, right? So you got to work. You got to keep writing and just work your butt off, which is what I do. I work my ass off. I don't do anything but movies. I fucked my wife a few times. I have 3 kids, and I work for my high school, and I do some eleemosynary activity. But basically, all I care about are movies. And Michael Herz loves movies. He doesn't like making them anymore, but he loves the movie. He loves movies. He loves Troma, and he loves our fans.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank Lloyd Kaufman for being our guest today. His new film, Return to Newcombe High, Volume 2, is having its West Coast premiere on March 8th at the Laemmle Theaters in Los Angeles. Lloyd, here's your chance to market the hell out of all things Troma. In honor of you, while you're doing that, I am going to do the chemical vomit effect with Alka-Seltzer and food coloring, which I learned from you. And I'm going to start that now, a little bit of green food coloring. Go ahead. Knock yourself out.
And every major filmmaker now, Spielberg and George Lucas, they're all doing the green meltdown, and they're all doing head squashings. Terrence Malick just put a head squash in his movie. Cannes Film Festival is full of it. At any rate, if you want me to talk to you, go to Twitter, @Lloyd Kaufman. I do my own Twitter. Oh, you're getting off camera. Move to your, you go, oh my God, big eyes, lift your chin up. Lift your chin up, big eyes, look into the camera. That's it. Oh, now shake a little bit. Ah! And use your hands, do like, yeah, beautiful. That's great. I hope you've filmed this. It's wonderful. If you've had a hangover, you swallow it. It helps your hangover. But you look pretty. You don't look like you have a hangover. That was well done. Very well done.
Thanks so much. I work cheap.
But the big mistake that people make, Scott, is they look down after they do it. So the camera sees the top of their heads. So
right.
You got to keep your chin up. So you did it perfectly. I mean, you were amazing.
All right. Well, that is the show, folks. Once again, I want to thank Lloyd for being our guest today. It's been a pleasure. And for everyone out there, thanks so much for listening. And remember, until next time, stay hell-bent. And thanks for listening to the show. Hellbent for Horror was written and broadcast by me, S.A. Bradley, and produced by me and Lisa Gorski. You can find more on our website, hellbentforhorror.com, and I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/hellbentforhorror, and my Twitter handle is hellbenthorror. Please hit that subscribe button to get H4H hot off the press. And if you can do a review on iTunes or whatever app you listen to us on, that really helps people get to find us. And now for some Hellbent for Horror news. The podcast is available on some more outlets now, so you can listen to H4H on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn Radio, as well as the regular iTunes, Android, and Amazon apps. And let there be swag. H4H t-shirts are now on sale. We have a store on tpublic.com with a bunch of Hellbent for Horror designs, and you can have your choice of t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, something horrible beautiful for you or that someone special. The link to the merchandise store is on our website, hellbentforhorror.com. And in the wings is a Hellbent for Horror book entitled Screaming for Pleasure. I'm currently writing it, and we're shooting for a release in the fall of 2018, so spread the word and keep your eye out. More info on that later. And until we meet again, stay hellbent.